So the first seditious conspiracy trial kicked off this week in federal district court in Washington, D.C., involving the so-called Oath Keepers. I think it's time for some accountability for the people who tried to violently overthrow our government. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So a big trial kicked off this week in federal district court in Washington, D.C. The head of the so-called Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes, together with 4 of his fellow Oath Keepers, his co-defendants, his co-conspirators, are on trial. They're on trial for attacking the Capitol on January 6, 2020, in an attempt to violently overthrow the government. The lead charge in the case is a seditious conspiracy charge. Now, I was in court for the first day of trial, jury selection, and jury selection is still in progress. It will probably take another day or two, and then they'll move into opening statements. I will be there covering the trial for you all, and I'll be doing periodic Justice Matters videos, sort of relating and updating what I'm seeing unfolding in court. I want to take on 3 quick things in this video today. First, the latest reporting on the commencement of the trial. Then I want to look at the indictment and just briefly go through the charges that have been indicted against these 5 defendants. And then I want to finish up by talking about the lead charge of seditious conspiracy. Because, in shorthand fashion, we generally say, well, that's a conspiracy to violently overthrow the government. That's one way to violate the seditious conspiracy laws, but other conduct will violate the seditious conspiracy statute as well. And I want to finish by talking about that because we're going to be seeing more seditious conspiracy cases in the near future. Put a pin in that. Let's start with the new reporting from the New York Times. Headline, Sedition Trial of Oath Keepers Gets Underway. And that article begins, jury selection began on Tuesday in the case of Stewart Rhodes, the leader of the far-right militia group, and 4 other members charged with seditious conspiracy in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The trial is expected to last 4 to 6 weeks, and it's the first of a handful in which far-right groups are facing accusations of anti-government activities. Enrique Tarrio, the former chairman of the Proud Boys, and 4 other members of that nationalist group are scheduled to face trial in the coming months on seditious conspiracy charges for their own roles in the storming of the Capitol. The government's presentation will include live testimony from cooperating witnesses from inside the Oath Keepers, recordings of digital walkie-talkies used on January 6th, and reams of encrypted signal chats that Mr. Rhodes and others exchanged in the days leading up to the attack. 2 days after the election, for example, Mr. Rhodes sent a message to several of his members urging them to refuse the results of the voting and warning, quote, "We aren't getting through this without a civil war," close quote. And a few days later, he sent another message to the group saying that the Oath Keepers had to, quote, "march en masse on the nation's capital," close quote. Now, the New York Times article also goes on to talk about some of the anticipated defenses that will be raised by these defendants. I don't want to go into that now. I prefer to watch the defense attorneys give their opening statements to the juries, laying out their expected defenses. And then I'll do a Justice Matters video kind of reviewing, giving you my take on what the defense attorneys opened on with respect to how they're going to try to defend their clients. So let's move on briefly to the charges in the indictment against these 5 co-defendants. Seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to prevent an officer from discharging any duties, destruction of government property, civil disorder, assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers, and tampering with documents or proceedings. Okay, now let's finish up by talking for just a few minutes about what a seditious conspiracy is. What kind of conduct did these defendants have to engage in to violate the federal seditious conspiracy law? Because you can actually violate it in a number of ways. The seditious conspiracy statute, 18 United States Code 2384, reads as follows. If two or more persons conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against the United States, or to oppose by force the authority of the United States, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So as you can see from that sort of laundry list of conduct, the seditious conspiracy law can be violated if you conspire to violently overthrow the government, or it can also be violated if two or more people conspire to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, like the Electoral Count Act, like trying to prevent, hinder, or delay the certification of Joe Biden's win, like trying to stop the steal. And the seditious conspiracy statute can also be violated if somebody by force tries to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States, like taking control, even if only temporarily, of the U.S. Capitol. The reason I go through that, friends, is because I have a feeling we're going to be seeing more seditious conspiracy indictments dropping soon. We already know Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys are facing a seditious conspiracy trial, but friends, it wouldn't surprise me if in the very near future we started to see indictments of people like Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, Mike Flynn, perhaps others, for seditious conspiracy. And based on my review of the evidence, at least the evidence that's publicly available, it sure doesn't look like Stewart Rhodes and his fellow Oath Keepers have much of a defense. In fact, when I talked to Joy Reid on air yesterday evening, we were talking about the Oath Keepers trial, and I said, sometimes defendants have a good legal defense. Sometimes they have a good factual defense. The Oath Keepers on trial seem to have neither. But I'll be there watching as they give their opening statements and as the prosecution moves through its case in chief, and then the defense will present any evidence it chooses to present. Then we'll watch the closing arguments, and then we will await the jury's verdict. And it's a verdict that I have to believe based on everything we know about what Elmer Rhodes and his fellow Oath Keepers did. It's a verdict that should be guilty, because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.